we're gonna grab our blankies. We're gonna light this candle. And we're gonna talk about the books that I read this month. Cinnamon Spice Vanilla, best scent from Bath & Body Works. If anyone cares. Also, I have a cheesesteak. I'll save this for later though. We'll just get this going. I kind of want to make my wrap-ups a nice little cozy vibe since we're just hanging out. We're just talking about books. It's very simple, so just want to keep it a little cozy as possible. We're just going to get right into it. I read 12 books this month. I'd say it was like 65-35. We're just going to go with that. But I have my pile and let's just start talking. Let's just get this going. So the first book that I read for August was Kid by Jessie Hall. I just want to show you all my stickies in here because it's absolutely beautiful and I love this cover. This whole book I love. I adore with my whole entire being, my soul, everything. And you should read this book. So this is a darker romance. Our main character, Kid, he is addicted to drugs, and we have Joanna, who is our other main character, and she's dealing with a lot of mental health issues, so it's kind of just their love story basically. But Kid is his nickname, that's not his real name, which by the way, when I found out his real name, it's like my favorite guy name. I was smiling. So Kid is dealing with a drug addiction and he is going to live with his friend for a while to try to get better, try to get sober and boost his life in a more positive direction. But his friend's name is Hawk and they're at this house and Hawk lives with his girlfriend, so they're all living together. They're super close. Great side characters in this story too. It starts out Kid is in this club and he sees this girl that he's instantly obsessed with pretty much, which I usually don't like instant attraction, but this one just felt right, like they're soulmates, you know? It was that kind of attraction, not like, oh, like I could do something with them. Like, no, this is soulmates. They're soulmates and they're meant to be together, and it was just perfect. It was literally perfect. Anyway, so he meets Joanna, that's the girl when this book starts off, and it's just them understanding each other, trying to get her to open up about what she's going through, what she has gone through. They're so supportive. Guys, I just please read this. I adore this book, and there is a book called Hawk that apparently comes before this, and it gives you like a little more of a backstory on Kid, and it's Hawk's story, so I have to read it. I gotta get it. This is like a 6-star, all the star read for me. With books, if there's a lot of deeper elements, I tend to like them more and they tend to stick with me. So this book had that. It had a ton of deep elements, a lot of mental health representation. This meant so much to me. I did relate to Joanna in a lot of ways, and just reading about things that you relate to just means so much. Like, as someone who loves reading books, when there's stuff that I can read about and just know that other people feel that same way, like it just makes you feel a lot better. And this had everything. Adored it. There's not much else I can say other than it was perfect. The second book is Wanderlust by Elle Costavelos. I'm sorry if I'm saying that last name wrong. I wasn't a huge fan of this book. I gave this a 2 stars. It was a super interesting concept. So basically we have our main character, Rain. She is married to this guy who she's not happy with at all. The story immediately starts off with her standing above her husband. He is dead. Apparently she murdered him, so she's kind of freaking out because she doesn't remember killing him. You're finding out the mystery behind that and why she doesn't remember and what actually happened. So she ends up in this mental facility because of her not remembering murdering someone. Very serious. It goes from there, and then it's kind of like a dual timeline type thing in 2 different worlds. So we have the real world where she's in this mental health facility, and then it flashes back to when she went into this world called Wanderlust, which she found it through a mirror in her studio. She's an artist, so in the top floor of her house she has a studio. There's a mirror in there, and all of a sudden she found like this world in there. She went in there and got stuck in Wanderlust, so she can go back and forth between this world. And she's escaping because she's not happy at all with her life in the real world. So she's just using Wanderlust as a place to go, a place to escape, learning all these new things with all these magical creatures and everything. In the introduction to the world of Wanderlust, there's this weird creepy lady that is like whispering to her in her house. She hears her voice and everything, and then she ends up seeing her. Nobody else can see her in the real world. She kind of like has these conversations with her and is questioning what this girl means to her, and she kind of like leads her into this world, which there was some unanswered questions. There were mentions of other humans being able to go into Wanderlust, but it was never answered on why our main character was picked or why other humans are picked to go into this world and why nobody else can go into it or see this world. It's just the back and forth of her trying to not seem like a crazy person, trying to not get accused of this murder. So she's talking with like these therapists and everything in this mental health facility, and they're trying to figure out what's going wrong. But she's not cooperative at all because she's dealing with this wanderlust world, this whole fantasy world where nobody believes her in anything that's happening. It was super interesting, but I just didn't like the execution of it. I didn't really like the writing. It was very slow at some points. It is a longer book. I got bored with a lot of it. It seemed kind of repetitive at certain points and not like a ton was happening. I just gave this a 2-star. It was okay though, but just didn't love it. Next we had Credence by Penelope Douglas. I wish I knew what this book was about before I started it because I would not have read it. This was, I was grossed out a lot. I gave this a 1 star. I kind of technically feel like I DNF'd this book because I skimmed the last like 150 pages super fast. I barely read it, but it honestly was just her with these 3 guys. The rest of the book, after you get to that point where they start doing things together. This is about our main character, Tiernan. It starts off super interesting. Her parents end up dead in their bed and nobody knows what happens. They like both kind of took their lives, so Tiernan is left alone. She's left with just her nanny pretty much, which is the only person that has ever really loved her. Her parents didn't even want her. They had never paid attention to her. They just didn't want a kid and they've treated her like crap her whole entire life. So she really has no feelings towards their death and she kind of feels guilty about it. The only person that she technically has left in her family is her dad's stepbrother, which is like her step uncle, and she kind of forgot that he even existed, so she has to go live with him since she's only 17, so she needs someone to live with until she's 18. So she ends up in the middle of nowhere pretty much in this like super small town. Their house is like way up in the woods, far away from the city and everything. So she's stuck there and they're gonna get stuck there for the winter once the snow starts coming down because they can't leave the house. Yeah, so when they get stuck in the house in the winter, they only have each other, and it's the step uncle and her 2 step cousins. So it's just these 3 guys and her, and they're very woman obsessed and they need women to function apparently. I was just gross. If they weren't technically, they're not related, they're not blood related, but it's still just the concept is weird to me and I'm not a fan of it. I don't know. And it's interesting because I just watched Steph's video when she read Dark Romance for a week. She read a book by Penelope Douglas which kind of also had like this incestual brother-sister relationship type deal going on, and obviously it wasn't true the way she was explaining it, but it still is weird to me and to other people probably. Some people probably don't mind it, which whatever floats your boat, but it was just interesting to see her thoughts on that book because it was the same thoughts that I had during this pretty much. And that book also being by Penelope Douglas, I just don't think that this is the author for me. So I did not like this book. I gave it a 1 star. There was really no plot either, so I wasn't even into the book at all really, other than the things that threw me off. But yeah, I just didn't like it. Then we have The Poppy War by R. Kwong. This is my first book by her. This is her debut novel, which I've said this before. This is starting my 24-hour readathon, all the books that I read there. So if you want to watch that, you can watch me read these. This book, perfect, 5 stars. I'm so surprised that I like this because I have a hard time with fantasy. I'm trying to get into fantasy and sci-fi and everything because I think those books are super interesting, but the whole like world building process and the slowness of fantasies and stuff kind of throws me off. But I'm trying to step out of my comfort zone and get into that. So I read this book and I absolutely love it. So this is about Rin, who is an orphan. She's living with her foster parents and they're trying to marry her off to this guy, which she's only 15, I believe, which is crazy. Her foster parents are trying to commit crimes with this drug. They're having her marry this certain guy who will help her parents commit these crimes, and she refuses. She does not want to do that. She takes this test, which is pretty much you have to be crazy smart to pass this test. She studies as hard as she possibly can to pass it so she can go to this academy for free and just get away from her life. The whole story revolves around her passing the test and going to this academy, doing all this training and everything. So it's basically like a military academy to become a warrior. It's super interesting. The characters in this book were very well written. I love pretty much every character in this book, even the bad people. But yeah, this was super interesting. So it follows the whole time at the academy. It's split into a few different parts, and then obviously you get the war portion of this. I'm excited to continue this trilogy. Yeah, I would highly recommend if you have not read this book yet. It was really good. Alright, next book we have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This is just a mystery, pretty fast read. I read this super quick. I think I gave this a 3.5 star. This is split into 3 different parts too. The first part I was iffy about. If it had stuck with just everything happening in the first part, I wouldn't have liked it. But of course, it had to pick up. So we have parts 2 and 3, which I really enjoyed. It was like the plot twist was starting and everything, and it was getting super interesting. This follows Millie, who was in prison, I believe, prison or jail. We don't know what she was in there for. She's living out of her car and she doesn't have a job, so she's trying to find a job. So she finds this housemaid job with this girl named Nina and her husband Andrew. They live in this house, so they hire Millie to just do all their in-house work for them and watch their kid, all that good stuff. But Nina is insane. She's crazy. She seems very odd and slightly dangerous. And this is just her story of being in this house, dealing with Nina. But then you get all the plot twists and everything starts happening. I just think Millie was very dumb. She has these gut feelings like, hey, I shouldn't be in this house. This is very dangerous. Something bad is going to happen to me. And she doesn't leave, which makes a story, but also, why would you not listen to your gut feelings? Like that, you gotta listen to your gut feelings. I am a strong believer in that, and she did not do it. That's all I have to say. I did enjoy that book. I'm excited to read the second one. I have it now, so I'll be reading that soon. Next we have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I wasn't expecting to like this book, and I didn't. I gave this a 2 star. This was another book where I think the concept was very interesting and it could have been something great, but I just didn't like the execution of it again. This follows our main character Nora, I believe is her name. Yes, Nora. So she is not happy with her life. She tries to end her life this one night. And after that, she's kind of in this limbo between life and death. And she goes to this midnight library. So she's technically like still alive in her actual life. And she's in this library where she has all these books, which are apparently different lives that she could possibly live. It's every situation that your life could go. So she's diving into these different books and seeing all these different lives that could have been possible for her. She's looking at her regrets and what could be changed. And then obviously every time you go into a life, there's still issues. No life is perfect. So I understood the message of this story, but I didn't like the whole perspective of her going into these lives, because it wasn't her like looking from the outside in, it was her going into it themselves. So it'd be like me like literally living in a different situation right now. But then if that's the case, you don't really know that life because you haven't lived that life yet. And then you're still in the mindset that you had from your real life where you're not happy and everything. So just going into a life that could be perfect, even though you still have the mindset you have, I just don't think that you could see another life as perfect when you're not happy. You know what I mean? Because mindset is everything. That's just what I didn't like about this book. And it was super short, super quick read, but just not for me. We have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I think it was a very well thought out mystery. I gave this a 4 stars. This follows a high schooler named Pip. So 5 years ago, this girl named Annie got murdered by her boyfriend Sal. And Pip does not believe that Sal was the one who did it. So she's doing this whole like senior research project type thing where she's diving back into this case and trying to figure out what actually happened, because she just is so convinced that Sal did not do it. So she's going through interviewing all these people who were related to Andy and whatnot. She's working on it with Sal's brother, so they developed this friendship, which I love that. I love their friendship and everything and them working together. I mean, that's basically it. You just get all the interviews, all the info on her trying to solve this mystery. I wasn't too happy with the end. I just don't think it was like crazy surprising for a mystery, but I really enjoyed this book the rest of the way through, and I would recommend this. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series though, just because I feel like that book wrapped up pretty well. I don't know what the other books are about. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just fine with reading that one, but if I should read the other ones, let me know. Okay, and then we had Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is my first book by her. I've heard so many good things about her books, so I just had to dive in, and I did, and I love this. I gave this a 4.5 star. This follows Liz and Wes. They've known each other for a while. They're neighbors, and there's just one parking spot that they both want to park their car in. So they kind of had this little feud over this parking spot. It's just like a nice, friendly little feud, you know. This guy named Michael, who is from Liz's childhood, he comes back to their school. He moved away for a long time. Liz hasn't seen him in quite a while, since she was young. And she just has this crush on Michael. So she wants to get close to him. Wes ends up being friends with Michael, so she's trying to convince Wes to hang out with her so that she can get close to Michael. So they form this agreement where if Wes is letting Liz hang out with them and get close to Michael, she's gonna give him this parking spot. It's basically just their friendship and them hanging out and getting close to each other while she's trying to get Michael and he's dealing with this other girl. But I just thought it was a really nice YA rom-com, and I would love to see this as an actual movie. If we can get to All the Boys I've Loved Before, we should be able to get this. Somebody make it happen. Put it in the universe. Let's make it happen. Then we have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I was so expecting to love this book, and I just didn't. I gave this a 2-star. It was just really flat for me, and I think I had too many expectations, or I had the wrong expectations. I don't remember the characters' names. That's how you know I didn't like this book. Okay, Scarlet. We have Scarlet and her sister, and then we have Tella, who is a sailor dude who takes Scarlet to Caraval, which is this game thing that comes to different places every year. It's very mysterious. Everybody wants to go and play and see what it's all about. So Scarlett has been writing Legend, who is the creator of Caraval, for years, and she really wants to get tickets to this game. So she eventually does. She goes with Tella, the sailor, and the game actually revolves around her sister being missing, so everybody in the game has to find her sister, which I wasn't a fan of that concept. I didn't connect to any of the characters in this. I didn't really like any of them, and I just feel like the story fell flat because there wasn't really any mention of the other players in the game. There were other people in Caraval, but it always seemed like it ended up being people who were working for Caraval, and I just wish we got more interaction between different players, but it was really just Scarlet and these people that were already in Caraval. I unfortunately didn't like this. I wish I did, but what are you gonna do? Alright, next we have The Wall. This book is so chunky. We have The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. This book is very big. I saw the new cover in Target and I wanted to see how many pages that was. It was only 400 something. This is like 670. So I don't know why, but crazy. Anyway, wasn't really a fan of this one either. I feel like I'm so 50-50 with Mariana Zapata. Well, now I'm like 33-66 because I've read 3 of her books and I only like 1. This is a football romance. We have Aiden and Vanessa. Aiden is called the Wall of Winnipeg. That's his nickname. He's this huge guy, which was mentioned 800 times in this book, so don't forget that he was a big man. I don't know why. I hate romance books that like constantly talk about the guy just being like fit and attractive or just huge. Like, oh, he's 6'5". He's strong. Like, okay, I don't care. Like, just give me some plot. I didn't hate this book, but it was not something that I really remember, even though I kind of just read it. But basically Vanessa is Aiden's assistant. She's working for him. She's doing everything. So she's going to his house and doing all emails, like cleaning up, doing his laundry, phone calls, anything you can think of that he's not doing. And he's very standoffish. He doesn't really form a connection with her or talk to her. So she gets to the point where it's like, I don't want to be doing this anymore. She wants to do her graphic design career. So she tells him, I'm quitting. And he's like, okay. And he lets her go. And then he shows up at her apartment and wants her back. So it's like, what are you doing, you know? And he has this roommate, Zach, who Vanessa was close friends with. They have a great relationship. And I was rooting for them. I wasn't even rooting for Vanessa and Aiden. Aiden ends up showing up to her apartment and asks him a crazy question, which I don't want to say because it's a spoiler. I didn't know that that's what this book was about, and it's not on the back. So I'm not going to say what question he asked. But then Vanessa and Aiden have to be pretty much forced together. It's their story. I don't know. There's something about the love interest or the guy in her books that they have no personality. And I don't know how anybody can like them. I read From Look Up With Love. I actually enjoyed that. I gave that one 4 stars. And then I read Coffee. I hated that book. This one I gave a 2 star. Like I said, I did not hate it. It just dragged. There wasn't really too much of a plot. I did not feel the connection between them at all, and I can't, because this man is just not it. He's not it. Alright, and then we have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is my first book by this author, and I really enjoyed this. I gave this one 4 stars. So this is about Alexis and Daniel. So Daniel is from this very small town, and Alexis is 2 hours away in the city. She's a doctor, and Daniel is just this small town dude doing all this small town work with all these small town people. Love me a small town. Abby, why do I always call the main character the author's name? I've done that like 3 times now and I don't know what's wrong with me. Again, Alexis is dealing with this guy that she's with. They're going through a breakup right now because he did some unspeakable things to her. We don't like him. She was I don't even know why she was driving at the beginning of the book, but she ends up in this ditch in this small town that Daniel is from. And she's waiting for this tow truck, and this guy comes knocking on our window and is like, I'll tell you how. Like, you're gonna be waiting for this tow truck. This dude's at the bar. Like, we're a small town. We know where everybody's at. Like, he's not gonna come get you for a while. So I will do it. So he tells her out, and then she's like hungry, so she wants someplace to eat, and she doesn't want to drive like 40 or so minutes to the next city to find something because it's super late at night. So he's like, there's this bar, just go there, whatever. So she goes there. He ends up being there too. They end up going back to his house. He makes her a grilled cheese, which cute. Love that. And she stays. And she is so surprised that she stayed because she's not the type of person to stay and have a one-night stand, but they did. And I'm not normally a fan of that stuff in books either, or age gaps. This is a 10-year age gap, but this book did it so well. And I loved it. The only thing I didn't like about this book was the whole third act conflict type thing. And I can never get over in a romance where the main character knows that they are so in love with this person and knows that they feel the same way, but they're still making up every excuse possible to not be with them. It's like, just stop. This is who you're supposed to be with. Just go for it. That happened in this book, and I can't do it. I don't like it. But everything else was absolutely amazing. So 4-star. And then after that, I read Yours Truly, which is technically the second book after Part of Your World. This one follows Alexis's best friend, Brianna, which I really enjoyed her in the first book. I liked her a lot. This book, I was iffy about her. There was just some things that she said. This was also the whole thing like I was talking about with Part of Your World, where she was making up excuses not to be with this person. And it's so frustrating. I think it was more frustrating in this book than it was in that book. Because in that book, she was convincing Alexis to be with Daniel. She's like, yeah, go for it. Like, you have to be happy. Like, change your life. And this one, she's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. Like, you were just telling her to do it. Why aren't you doing it? That's what frustrated me about her. She was also, there were some things said about guys that she was going on dates with that just seemed very judgmental of her, to judge a guy with no headboard on his bed or one plate. Like, if he's living alone, he only needs one plate. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't really care about that stuff. So just reading about it just seemed super judgmental to me. Other than that, I like this book. I gave this one a 3.5 stars. I was super excited for this. I thought this was going to be one of my all-time favorite reads just because of the anxiety representation, specifically social anxiety. Obviously, that was my favorite part. I loved a lot of the lines in this book and quotes in this book because it just made me feel seen, and I really appreciated that a ton. And just the fact that Brianna was the person that Jacob needed. I guess I'll give you the backstory because if you don't know what this book is about, you don't know what I'm talking about. But we follow Brianna and Jacob. They're both doctors. They're both dealing with exes. Brianna's going through a divorce right now, and Jacob recently broke up with the girl that he was with, and he moved to a new hospital because he was working with his ex, and his ex is actually marrying his brother, which is why he's spiraling right now. And Brianna is swearing off guys, apparently. They meet. She kind of doesn't have a good first interaction with Jacob just because he has social anxiety, so he doesn't come off as someone who is necessarily nice. Everybody doesn't really like him because he's so closed off and he's not good at expressing his feelings or just making small talk, which I can relate. I definitely relate to that. And it sucks. But Brianna eventually just understands him so well, and it was so nice to read about somebody understanding somebody in that type of way. And it's just everybody who deals with what Jacob is dealing with knows that having somebody like Brianna will literally be the best thing to ever happen. And I don't know if that's actually possible in real life, but just reading about it was so heartwarming. And they start writing letters to each other because that's just the easiest way for him to communicate, and it's so cute. I love letters. I love writing letters. Me and my friend used to write letters to each other all the time in high school, and after we graduated we would like mail them to each other, and it's so cute. I love it. There were obviously aspects that I completely loved about this book, but then there were some that I didn't enjoy at all. And I think this one having the same third act conflict breakup type thing as Part of Your World just made me dislike that even more, because after I just read about it I didn't really want to read about it again, so it kind of brought it down even more for me. I still really enjoy this book. I would recommend it, and if you don't mind the whole third act crazy frustrating breakup, then go for it. You'll probably love this book. And that's it for August. Those are all my reads. Now it's time to get into fall reads and fantasy. I'm so excited. I love fall. Also, I'm filming this literally on September 1st. It's Friday. So that means Tuesday, Things We Left Behind and The Long Game are coming out. And I'm gonna be driving myself to the bookstore and I'm gonna get them. And I think I might do a reading vlog on those 2 books. I'm unsure, but I'm so excited. Those, as soon as I get them, I have to start them because I waited so long to start Things We Hide from the Light, and I just know when I get Things We Left Behind in my hands, I gotta read it. I have to. I'm not gonna go on a long tangent. I will go on a long tangent if I do a reading vlog for that, so stick around. You might be seeing that in the next couple weeks. That's it. Let me know what your favorite read of August was. I will see you in my next video, whatever that may be. I will see you later. Everybody, let's get ready for fall. I'm so excited. I'm gonna eat my cheese stick. This isn't even cold anymore. I'm still gonna eat though. See ya.